In our timeline, the invention of the internet reshaped every facet of modern life. But what if it never happened? Imagine a world where ARPANET failed to gain traction in the 1960s, and key figures like Vint Cerf and Tim Berners-Lee never developed TCP/IP were the World Wide Web. Communications would remain analog and local, dominated by radio, television, and printed media. Long-distance collaboration would rely on fax machines and landline telephony. The foundations of a digital revolution would be absent. This is not merely a slower world, it is an entirely different civilization, disconnected and decentralized, where knowledge is slower to spread, and power is distributed differently. Without the internet, technology doesn't stop, but it evolves along different lines. Local computing still advances. Personal computers become widespread by the late 1990s, but they function more like smart typewriters and stand-alone machines. Games are stored on physical disks. Operating systems are not updated remotely. Software is bought in boxes. Universities and corporations maintain internal networks, but these are closed systems, intranets, with no outside access. Information remains siloed, and interconnectivity is reserved for elite institutions. A world without the internet is a world without Google, without social media, and without digital globalization. One of the internet's greatest impacts was the acceleration of globalization. Without it, the global economy grows slower and more uneven. International communication remains dependent on telegraphs, phone calls, and air travel. Businesses rely on paper catalogs and physical mail. Multinational corporations are slower to coordinate across borders. Supply chains remain regional, not global. E-commerce never rises. Amazon is just a bookstore in Seattle. The digital marketplace never forms, and physical storefronts dominate. Developing nations do not leapfrog into the digital age. Instead, economic gaps widen, and the digital divide becomes a permanent geopolitical fault line. Politics without the internet unfolds in darker corners. Activism is slower, limited to pamphlets, meetings, and underground newspapers. There are no viral hashtags, no live-streamed revolutions, no whistleblowers sharing files across continents. Authoritarian regimes are stronger, their control more absolute. Surveillance still exists, but it is physical, not digital. Spies, not spyware. Leaks happen slowly, and censorship is easier to enforce. On the other hand, conspiracy theory spreads slower too. Mass manipulation via algorithm never takes root. Populations are shaped by state television, not clickbait. Democracy moves in inches, not waves. The information war is waged on paper, not in pixels. A generation grows up without screens in their pockets. There are no smartphones, no instant messaging, no streaming. Teenagers pass handwritten notes, talk on corded phones, and visit video rental stores. News travels by television and newspaper. Music is discovered on the radio or through CDs exchanged between friends. Education is limited by geography. Students rely on textbooks, not search engines. Social anxiety still exists, but the causes are different. There is no cyberbullying, no doom scrolling, but also no global awareness. The youth are local in identity, their world confined to city limits, not global timelines. It is both safer and lonelier. Without the internet, the transformation of commerce into a digital force never occurs. There are no online stores, no digital payments, no cryptocurrency. Small businesses remain entirely local, and big corporations rely on catalog mailers and television ads. Shopping is a physical act, walking into stores, browsing shelves, handing over cash or swiping plastic cards. Price comparisons require visiting multiple stores or calling hotlines. There is no eBay, no digital marketplaces, and certainly no influencer marketing. Marketing is conducted through newspapers, billboards, and late-night infomercials. Commerce is slower, less competitive, and less convenient, but also more tactile, more human. Education becomes one of the most dramatically different sectors in this alternate timeline. Without online resources, students rely exclusively on textbooks, libraries, and face-to-face instruction. Encyclopedias and printed journals remain the standard for research. Teachers are the gatekeepers of knowledge. Distance learning is nearly impossible, reserved only for correspondence courses by mail. There are no Zoom classes, no YouTube tutorials, and no Wikipedia. Academic collaboration is limited to in-person conferences and printed publications. While some argue this strengthens discipline and focus, others note that the pace of discovery slows. Knowledge is valuable, but not easily accessible. Entertainment remains rich, but isolated. Without the internet, film and television are still powerful, but content discovery is limited to what's in theaters, broadcast, or on VHS and DVD. There's no Netflix, no Spotify, no viral videos. Musicians rely on radio play and physical album sales. Underground scenes remain underground, with limited exposure. Niche content struggles to find an audience. Blockbusters dominate. Video games thrive, but without online play. LAN parties are the peak of social gaming. Content is consumed passively, not interactively. Creativity still exists, but virality does not. Art lives, but it does not travel as easily. Workplaces evolve more slowly. There is no remote work revolution. Offices are physical spaces, where employees must be present from 9 to 5. Fax machines, pagers, and landlines dominate communication. Memos are typed and distributed by hand. Cloud storage is non-existent. Documents live on floppy disks or internal servers. Collaboration across cities or countries takes days or weeks, not seconds. Job searching happens through newspapers or word of mouth. Tech startups as we know them never emerge. Productivity is measured in paper output, not digital analytics. Innovation still exists, but progress moves with the speed of the postal service. In a world without the internet, the banking system remains stubbornly physical. Bank branches are crowded with people waiting in line to deposit checks, withdraw cash, or inquire about balances. There are no online banking portals, no mobile apps, no instant transfers. ATMs are widespread, but limited in functionality. Financial transactions rely heavily on paper records and human oversight, increasing the risk of errors and fraud. Credit card approvals take days. International transactions move at a glacial pace. Global stock markets are less volatile, but also less efficient. The rise of decentralized finance never occurs. Bitcoin is never born. Perhaps one of the most profound changes is the absence of social media. No Facebook, no Instagram, no Twitter, no TikTok. The social fabric evolves along entirely different lines. People socialize in person or by telephone. Friendships are local, not global. News is delivered by journalists, not influencers. Political discourse happens in print or town halls, not in memes or tweets. While this reduces the speed of misinformation and polarization, it also limits exposure to diverse viewpoints. Marginalized voices struggle to reach wider audiences. Identity is shaped by neighborhood, not timeline. There are fewer echo chambers, but fewer microphones too. Travel without the internet is slower, riskier, and less spontaneous. There are no GPS apps, no live traffic updates, no instant hotel bookings. Road trips require physical maps. Tourists rely on guidebooks and handwritten directions. Booking a flight involves calling an agent or visiting a travel agency. Reviews are word of mouth or published in magazines. Navigation errors are common. Missed connections and delays create chaos. Yet, travel feels more adventurous, more tactile. Every trip is a leap of faith. Without real-time translation apps, language barriers are steeper. Global tourism remains a luxury, not a habit. Espionage in this alternate timeline remains rooted in traditional methods: spies, intercepted cables, and classified briefings. Cyber warfare never becomes a frontline weapon. Intelligence agencies focus on physical infiltration, surveillance flights, and human assets. Governments cannot tap into data from billions of users. There are no email leaks, no metadata trails, no cyber attacks on infrastructure. National secrets remain better guarded, but also harder to obtain. The arms race continues, but without digital battlegrounds. The Cold War never evolves into a cyber war. In this world, the most powerful weapon remains human intelligence, not artificial. Without the internet, journalism is slower but more curated. Daily newspapers dominate the flow of information. TV news holds the public's attention. Journalists operate on editorial schedules, not clicks or trending topics. Investigative journalism is alive and well, but breaking news travels slower. There are fewer independent creators, no blogs, no YouTube channels. Media giants control the narrative. However, the absence of ad-based algorithms reduces sensationalism. News is consumed at a human pace, with time for reflection. The public is less overwhelmed, but also less informed in real time. In the analog age, truth is a print deadline away. The modern military depends heavily on the internet for logistics, communication, intelligence, and warfare. Without it, 21st century armies look very different. Command centers rely on satellite radio and secure landlines. Missile systems are manually controlled. Drone warfare is limited or non-existent. Real-time battlefield coordination becomes harder, requiring old-school radio operators and couriers. Cyber attacks on power grids or banking systems never occur, but this also means defenses are less advanced. Military-industrial espionage reverts to briefcases and bribes. War is still destructive, but slower, more physical, and more reliant on human error. The digital battlefield never opens. Scientific progress without the internet slows drastically. Research papers are printed, mailed, and archived manually. Peer review takes months. Data sharing across countries is tedious. There are no collaborative platforms, no open access databases. Climate scientists cannot access real-time satellite data. Astronomers work with analog equipment and share findings through academic journals. Medical research is fragmented, locked within institutional walls. Innovations still emerge, but often duplicated or delayed. Conferences become the only point of global connection. The pace of scientific breakthroughs is closer to the early 20th century than the 21st. Knowledge exists, but rarely flows freely. Without the rise of e-commerce, the global economy retains a brick-and-mortar backbone. There is no Amazon, no Alibaba, no Shopify. Small businesses can't reach global customers. Large brands dominate retail, but at a local pace. Advertising depends on TV, radio, and magazines. Digital currencies do not exist, nor do app-based services like ride-sharing or food delivery. Consumer habits are shaped by geography, not algorithms. Retail employment remains high, but innovation lags. The tech boom never happens, and Silicon Valley is just another suburb. The economy still grows, but slower, more rigid, and less personalized. The environmental movement struggles without global communication tools. There is no digital organizing, no viral footage of melting glaciers or wildfires. Climate data is collected locally and shared slowly. International agreements like the Paris Accord are harder to negotiate without shared platforms. Awareness spreads through documentaries, print campaigns, and word of mouth. Activists travel physically to reach audiences. The urgency of the climate crisis feels muted. Scientific consensus takes longer to form. While pollution and carbon emissions still rise, coordinated action is delayed by decades. The planet suffers from isolation as much as politics. In this alternate timeline, culture remains largely regional. There are no viral dances, no global memes, no overnight celebrities. Music, fashion, and trends spread slowly through TV, movies, magazines, and travel. Subcultures stay local. A punk scene in London might never influence teens in Tokyo. Independent artists struggle to gain audiences beyond their town or city. Cultural exchange happens through physical migration, not pixels. National identity remains dominant. While some argue this preserves cultural uniqueness, others mourn the lack of shared global moments. A world without virality is less noisy, but also less connected emotionally. In the absence of the internet, innovation becomes a fragmented endeavor. Inventors work in silos, and discoveries often overlap, or go unnoticed. Silicon Valley doesn't explode into the center of technological power. It remains a region of modest development. Companies invest in hardware, not software services. Smart devices remain limited in functionality, with no app ecosystems or cloud integration. Without open-source collaboration or global testing feedback, tech advances slowly. New inventions are protected by patents and gatekept by corporations. Innovation still exists, but it becomes a corporate monopoly, not a global conversation. The age of user-driven disruption never arrives. Love, friendship, and human connection unfold differently without the internet. Dating apps never emerge. People meet at work, school, or through mutual acquaintances. Courtship is slower, with handwritten letters and landline calls. There are no ghostings via text, just missed calls and awkward encounters. Long-distance relationships depend on physical mail or expensive phone calls. People form deeper bonds in smaller social circles. Yet, for many, this world is lonelier. The socially anxious or geographically isolated find it harder to connect. For LGBTQ+ individuals, visibility and community are nearly impossible without online spaces. The absence of digital connection is both grounding and limiting. In a world without the internet, human relationships look very different. There are no dating apps, instant messages, or social media to confirm attraction. People meet in person, at work, school, or through friends. Relationships build slowly through real conversations, handwritten letters, and phone calls. Long-distance love is harder to maintain without video calls or messaging apps. Friendships remain local and small. Without online communities, many feel isolated, especially minority groups like LGBTQ+ individuals who rely on the internet to find support. Some argue that without digital distractions, people are more present and engaged in real life. Yet millions never find their community, and the world becomes quieter and lonelier. Without the internet, global politics and economics change drastically. Countries that once ruled through digital platforms now compete through diplomacy, trade, traditional media, and military power. Globalization slows, and regional alliances grow stronger. Developed nations keep their power, while many others remain poor without digital technologies to boost their economies. Authoritarian governments control information through traditional media, suppressing opposition easily without digital leaks or protests. Societies become less connected, and international cooperation is harder. Power concentrates in a small elite, and the world becomes more divided. A world without the internet is not a disaster but a mischance. Progress happens slower and is less fair. Knowledge stays in books and elite schools. Opportunities depend on wealth and location. Talented children in remote areas may never be found. Without online education and platforms, creativity and learning are limited. People have fewer distractions and deeper real-life bonds, but face more loneliness. The internet brought problems like privacy issues and misinformation, but also opened doors to connection, learning, and global participation. Without it, the world is quieter, smaller, and less complete. In a world without the internet, journalism remains limited to print newspapers, radio, and TV. News spreads slower, and fewer voices are heard. Large media corporations dominate public opinion. Independent journalists struggle without blogs, podcasts, or social media. Investigative reporting takes longer, and breaking news may not reach people in time. Governments can more easily control the flow of information. Censorship becomes harder to fight without whistleblowers posting online. While fake news is less viral, state propaganda becomes stronger. The public receives less diverse perspectives, and critical thinking suffers. Entertainment without the internet relies on physical media, DVDs, CDs, books, and live events. Streaming doesn't exist. People rent movies or buy albums. Musicians and filmmakers depend on radio and TV exposure. Independent artists have limited reach. Viral fame is impossible. Fan communities form around magazines or local clubs, not global platforms. The diversity of voices in music and film remains limited. Content creators struggle without YouTube or TikTok. Entertainment is more curated, more exclusive, and slower to evolve. Without online learning, education remains tied to physical schools. Remote areas lack access to quality teachers or resources. Students can't take free online courses or join virtual classrooms. Libraries and textbooks become the only sources of information. Special needs students have fewer tools to help them learn. Self-education is harder. Knowledge stays centralized in universities, not open to all. Lifelong learning becomes rare. The digital divide doesn't exist, but the opportunity divide becomes wider. In a world without the internet, remote work doesn't exist. Most jobs require physical presence. Telecommuting, freelancing, or working from home aren't options. Parents can't balance childcare and careers easily. People can't access global job markets. Entrepreneurs can't sell online. The gig economy never happens. Productivity tools are offline. Job seekers rely on newspapers, not websites. Career growth depends more on location than talent. Economic mobility is harder. While some value face-to-face work, others are left behind. Banking without the internet is paper-based. People visit branches for every transaction. Online banking, mobile wallets, and instant transfers don't exist. Small businesses struggle to accept digital payments. Credit cards are less common. Saving, investing, and budgeting tools are offline or unavailable. Access to banking is limited in rural areas. Financial inclusion suffers. People depend more on cash. Fraud and theft remain physical crimes, not digital. Fintech never rises. The global economy moves slower and includes fewer people. Shopping without the internet means visiting stores in person. There are no online shops, digital marketplaces, or product reviews. Small towns have limited options. Global products are hard to find. Sellers rely on catalogs, phone orders, or mail-in forms. Price comparison is difficult. Impulse buying is lower, but so is convenience. Businesses grow slower. Customers trust brands based on ads or word of mouth. E-commerce giants like Amazon never exist. Consumer choice is narrow and location-bound. Without the internet, cultural exchange happens slowly. People learn about other cultures through books, TV, or travel. Global trends spread over years, not minutes. Music, fashion, and food evolve locally. Language learning is harder without apps or videos. Stereotypes are harder to challenge. Misunderstandings persist. Cultural diplomacy depends on tourism and media. Youth subcultures don't go viral. Memes don't exist. Shared global moments are rare. The world feels bigger and more distant. In a world without the internet, Access to medical information is limited. Patients rely solely on doctors or printed material. Self-diagnosis is risky. Telemedicine doesn't exist. Health apps, forums, and support groups are gone. People with rare conditions feel isolated. Public health campaigns use posters, not posts. Epidemics spread before communities are warned. Medical research progress is slower. Collaboration between hospitals and labs is delayed. While misinformation is less common, awareness is also lower. Health becomes more private, but less empowered. Without the internet, surveillance takes a different form. Governments and corporations collect less digital data, but physical surveillance increases. CCTV, paperwork, and informants dominate. There are fewer data leaks, but less transparency. Citizens can't expose abuse online. Whistleblowers use printed reports. Personal data isn't sold, but privacy is still threatened by face-to-face control. Digital tracking is gone, but authoritarian systems find other tools. Privacy is not guaranteed, only reshaped. Environmental activism struggles without the internet. Movements can't organize globally or spread awareness quickly. Climate reports stay in academic circles. Petitions are physical. Protests are local. Green innovation spreads slower. Eco-entrepreneurs can't reach global markets. Crowdfunding for climate projects doesn't exist. Online pressure on corporations disappears. Without viral content, many don't act. Some argue the environment benefits from less e-waste, but the fight against climate change becomes quieter and less united. Without the internet, innovation slows down. Scientists can't share results instantly. Startups rely on phone calls and faxes. Patents take longer. Collaboration is limited by geography. Mistakes are repeated. Open source projects don't happen. Hackathons don't exist. Inventors work in isolation. Funding is harder to find. Progress is measured in decades, not years. The world evolves, but at a crawl. War in a disconnected world looks different. Cyber attacks don't exist, but intelligence gathering is slower. Propaganda spreads through radio and print, not memes or videos. Soldiers lack real-time satellite data. Drones are limited. Civilian awareness of war is reduced. War crimes are harder to document. Peace efforts take longer. Diplomacy is slower. The fog of war grows thicker. Some wars last longer, others never begin, because communication is incomplete. The internet did not create connection, but it expanded it beyond borders. Without it, the world is quieter, slower, and more local. Some lives are simpler, some distractions vanish, but much is lost. Voices remain unheard. Ideas stay hidden. Dreams are limited by distance. Invention is slower. Empathy travels less. Without the internet, humanity survives, but it does not rise together. It grows, but apart. Without the internet, inventors and scientists work in greater isolation. There are no global forums, GitHub repositories, or instant peer collaboration. Ideas take years to circulate. A breakthrough in one country might never reach another. Local patents dominate, and redundancy is common. Innovators rely on print journals and physical conferences, limiting access. The world still creates, but more slowly, less efficiently, and often without knowing someone else already solved the same problem. Mental health care without the internet is deeply personal, but also more private. People can't search symptoms, join support groups, or message therapists online. Stigma remains higher without education campaigns and open conversations. Isolated individuals have fewer lifelines. Teens in distress can't turn to forums or hotlines. While some benefit from disconnecting from toxic digital spaces, many are left to suffer in silence. The invisible becomes even harder to see. In a disconnected world, youth culture is shaped by local influences. No TikTok dances, no YouTube trends. Subcultures rise slowly, often bound to geography. Teens express themselves through music, clothes, and local groups, not avatars or usernames. Identity exploration becomes more physical, more risky, and sometimes more authentic. But without exposure to broader ideas, creativity can be limited. Cultural evolution is slower, and rebellion takes different, quieter forms. Crime without the internet looks different. There are no cybercrimes, data breaches, or online scams. But physical crime increases: robbery, forgery, identity theft through paper records. Law enforcement depends on phone lines and in-person investigation. National and international databases don't exist. Tracking fugitives is harder. Criminals disappear across borders more easily. Surveillance is analog, slower, and less invasive, but also less effective. Justice moves more slowly. Coordination is weaker. The law chases shadows without a digital trail. The internet changed everything. In this alternate world, life is simpler but narrower. The absence of the internet didn't stop progress, it only slowed. and scattered it. Humanity still builds, creates, and connects, but only with those nearby. Dreams are smaller, movements grow slower, connection depends on roads and wires, not signals and satellites. Some flourish in this quiet world, but many remain unheard. What we gain from the internet isn't just speed, it's reach. Without it, the world still turns, but we turn alone.